Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Carla Correa. I'm a C House social worker, and
I'm Amanda Hosmer. I'm the D House social worker.
Research has proven that the student-teacher relationship improves the student's cognitive thinking, especially around problem-solving skills. Most teachers state that getting to know their students is the best part of the job. Attunement and connection is the ultimate goal for both the student and the teacher in the classroom. Emotional connection is central to learning. Check it out.
You had so much to offer yesterday. You tired. What's going on?
Strong relationships are central to the learning process. What the science of learning and development tells us is that we need to create learning environments which allow for strong long-term relationships for children to become attached to school and to the adults and other children in it.
When children have experiences of closeness and consistency and trust, oxytocin is released. Oxytocin has many, many positive effects on the development of the brain. So when we think about a relationship, we're not just talking about being nice to a child. We're talking about a child having an experience of attunement and trust strong enough to release the hormone oxytocin.
Good morning, Ariana. How you doing today?
The purpose of the morning greeting is to connect with them and to just make sure that I'm seeing them as humans. Like I'm making that relationship with them, making that bond.
I prioritize relationship building because getting to know them is the best part of the job.
When I come in the morning, we usually talk about things that are happening in our community.
We're trying to build caring and respect.
Teacher is trying to understand who I am and my values as a person.
When I have a free 45 minutes or an hour, I think to myself, I could sit down and catch up on grading, or I could go and make connections, whether it's a smile or a joke or a reminder. It validates their presence in the building.
Rock it out in the art room. It starts from so much honesty and transparency with kids. It's really easy to strive to be this like idealized, always ready to go elementary school teacher, and that's not real and that's not human. When people start talking about other things while I'm still giving directions, it feels frustrating for me and I have to take a breath. My students connect most with me when they see that I also struggle and I also have challenges. It takes a lot of vulnerability on my part.
Total familiarity. When that student knows that you care about them, when they know that you're a human, let's think about that. Their academic performance in your classes can be better.
If I'm comfortable around them, then I'm more confident around them, and it's easier to ask questions and things like that.
So when you're looking at this graph, what is it that you think happened?
Some teachers I don't always get along with the best, so then sometimes I'm like, I can't do it, so I'm just not gonna do it. But when I like the teacher, I want to do their work. I'll be like, I can learn this.
You all have done outstanding work.
Emotion and learning are completely connected. If you're in a positive emotional space, if you feel good about yourself, your teacher, that actually opens up the opportunity for more learning.
Good to see.
So we're going to talk about the objectives for today, which are twofold, just to provide a purposeful language for what we are already doing and to incorporate the new SEL definition and to also introduce an SEL resource tool that we as social workers have created for in-house use that we hope that you will continue to build upon. We will also end by modeling a classroom activity and the share out of an SEL skill building example that teachers are using in their classrooms. Your ticket out is a 1-minute survey. The new CASO SEL, social emotional learning definition, speaks to the same 5 core competencies that we are already aware of. In addition, the SEL definition has added authentic partnerships to the wheel to emphasize and advocate for a systematic approach in promoting student voice, creating supportive school climates and school-wide procedures, and fostering family engagement. You are not alone. We are all in this together. The new definition also emphasizes that we all play a role in helping our students develop healthy attitudes and identities in a more equitable and inclusive learning environment. As the video mentioned, SEL and equity are interwoven. Any conversation about social emotional learning is also a conversation about equity. So why do SEL in such a structured format? Once SE recognized the need to teach these core competencies, the need for mutual language for understanding was developed to help us organize ideas around thinking, which we refer to as the frameworks, and also communicating of SEL, the criteria or the building blocks of the framework, which we call core competencies. Various platforms are available to us as educators, and I know that you are aware of some of them. And as the vehicles of delivery, we have used Castle, Panorama, and today we will introduce you to the Social Worker SEL Resource Guide. As social workers and part of the student support staff, we will continue to be available for support and modeling of the 5 different competencies. We do it individually, in your classrooms, or in consultation with you one-on-one. Today, we are focusing on relationship building as we peruse the resource guide. The overarching goal of SEL is to strengthen the individual competencies so the whole community will benefit. So from the individual to the whole. As we all know, SEL begins at home, and it must be purposefully nurtured and supplemented through supportive school and classroom environments that offer opportunities for practice. And practice is the key word. We know that SEL learning is a developmental, SE learning is a developmental process that takes place beginning at birth and continues through adulthood. Even when young people receive excellent support for their social emotional development at home, there must be collaboration between school personnel, family members, and community resources to create a network of support for fostering social emotional competencies in young people. I don't know about you, but as a mother, when my children were young, I often recruited my doctor, their pediatrician, to help me with some of that SEL development. These skills need to continually develop through classroom instruction, various school activities, and support services, as well as by after-school, extracurricular, and service learning programs that continue to promote the social, emotional, and academic skill development. Opportunity for practice of these skills happens simultaneously in the classroom during the 2 types of teaching approaches. One that focuses on social teaching practice and speaks directly to the social emotional development, and the other one that focuses on the instructional teaching practices and speak to the cognitive development of the child. Together, they address the whole child. Teaching the 5 competencies serve as optimal resources to promote equity. We know that now. For example, focusing on the relationship building core that we are modeling today, we define relationship skills as the ability to establish and maintain healthy and supportive relationships, and to teach our students how to navigate settings with diverse individuals and groups. So focusing on this in our classrooms will help students with acceptance, exploration of policies that act as barriers, etc. It will help students understand, for example, the ELL student relationship to them, learn to meet each other where we are at, communicate clearly, listen actively, cooperate, work collaboratively to problem solve, and negotiate conflict constructively, provide leadership, and seek or offer help when needed. So what do teens really think about relationships? Let's see.
Y'all ready for this?
People have to communicate, but they also have to have boundaries.
When you truly care, you're caring, and your heart is just like with the other person. 2 people who have a great connection, who has around the same values or different values that they are respectful towards.
I would say they're comfortable with each other and they let each other know that.
They're also like supportive of each other and being like thoughtful, so
They have to be understanding, you know, like ask questions, but definitely try to see the other person as a person and not just like an instrument to use.
Treats them with respect. I feel like that's like the number one trait that you should have in a relationship.
I would want to know when they thought about me and stuff.
Feels safe to talk to me and also like wants to know about my day and cares about how I'm feeling and that like we're laughing together, but also like we can be very serious together.
I think my parents have a healthy relationship, even though they sometimes get mad at each other and get things out of their systems. They're still like supportive and they still compromise and do a lot of things for each other.
My brother and his girlfriend are a very good relationship because they spend time with each other and value each other very much.
Can I say mine?
Of course, yeah.
Well, my boyfriend treats me super well, and I'm so appreciative and grateful.
How long have y'all been together?
10 months. Yeah.
We're approaching that year mark.
I know, it's crazy. Thank you.
I love the transparency of teenagers. So integrating it into what we do, right? Why is this thing so important? Well, we already saw that. And it's always also already happening all throughout our building and the district. We as social workers, we deliver that one-on-one individual skill building in our meetings with our students. Guidance does the same thing in their meetings around academic skills, teaching them time management and so on. And we also provide outreach, and that communicates to our students that they matter and that we are listening. Home visits communicate we care and miss our students when they are absent, and various committees each serve its purpose supporting an SEL skill development. For example, the POG teaches character, race and equity, gives us voice, give our students voice. School climate communicates a sense of belonging, and overall SEL is all about acceptance. Finally, the classroom allows for practices of all these skills. We're going to introduce you to the SEL Social Worker Resource Guide that we have all been working on. And it is a document that when you click on, let's click on the core competency of relationship, since that's what we're modeling today. Very easy, user-friendly, takes you right to the relationship skill core competency. And the document is divided by icebreakers, videos, and classroom activities. So you can pick one that you want to introduce to your classroom weekly. You can peruse through the icebreakers. And today we are going to model for you our relationship circle in action, how to talk to our students about relationships through a classroom activity. So I have a wonderful student. She's a rule follower, so I don't think we're gonna have any issues today, are we, Amanda?
Definitely not.
Don't want to send you to your dean. All right, so the launch. Well, for most of us, relationships with family and friends are what keeps our lives on track. We have a whole range of relationships: family, partners, lifelong friends, work colleagues, neighbors, people with whom we share an interest, right through the people whom we pay for services, like my doctor, for example. These relationships are equally important, but can sometimes be challenging to create. We don't need to leave relationships and friendships to chance. In fact, we can be very intentional to strengthen our relationship network. So today, students, Amanda, we are going to use our circles to look at the people already in our lives and map out relationships with our community as well. So here in front of you, Amanda, we have 4 different circles that we will use to fill in the various relationships that you have. What will emerge from this exercise when we are complete is a picture of how your circle of relationships is or isn't balanced. And you can use 2 different colors of for the different business and personal relationships, or just use a color. It's up to you. So let's look at the first circle that we have. the one in the middle, is what we call the circle of intimacy. And Amanda's using the Jamboard and she will be typing it in. So the circle of intimacy is concerned with loving relationships and the anchors in our life. So here go to the people that you cannot imagine your life without. For example, usually it's mom, dad, partner, sister, brother, closest friend. Who would you put in your circle of intimacy, Amanda?
I would definitely put my parents, my siblings, and my partner in there.
Okay, thank you. The next circle is the circle of friendship. And the circle of friendship is concerned with friends and our allies. Who do we call to? Who do we call when we have good news? Who do we vent to when we're upset? Who do we draw strength from, share a laugh with, share our dreams with? Who do you spend the most time with, Amanda? Is it your babysitter, your tutors, doctors? Who did you put in your circle of friendship?
I put two of my closest friends, Kate and Heather, as well as a group of mostly women that I knit with up in New Hampshire. Well, it's been virtual this year, but.
That's really nice. Thank you. So now we're going to circle 3. The circle 3 is the circle of participation. And it's very, very important because that circle is concerned with people who share interests and our neighborhood connection as well. So in here, you can put people from clubs, from your class, work, and so on. Amanda, who are you thinking you might put in your circle of participation?
Well, to be honest, I'm having a really hard time with this circle, Ms. Correa.
Okay, so why don't you hold on to that and we'll see if we can balance it out later. Circle 4 is the circle of exchange, and the circle of exchange is concerned with our paid relationships. So in the circle are people like your doctor, your dentist, your window cleaner, and how about your Uber guy, right? I bet you spend a lot of money on that as a kid coming to school and going to visit your friends, your babysitters. So who did you come up with on circle 4, Amanda?
I came up with physical therapist.
Physical therapist. All right. Are you okay?
My foot's been bothering me, but it's slowly getting better.
Good to hear. Okay, so let's look at this picture. Do you feel like your circles are balanced?
No, I don't have anyone in my participation circle.
Okay. So are you saying that perhaps that's something, would you like to change that?
Yes.
You might want to change. All right. Which would you like to shift?
Well, I think part of it might be because I've been spending so much time at home and alone and not going to the gym or not going to places where I would normally be, having people in that participation circle.
Okay, and you're correct, Amanda, because the circle of participation is actually the one that sometimes we don't pay a lot of attention to, but it's the one that helps us move and balance out our relationships. So the main strategy for strengthening the intimacy and the friendship circles is to bring people into your circle 3, the circle of participation. And so I want you, these are the people that you spend time with, sharing an activity of mutual interest, working together, learning, playing a sport, maybe taking an art class together. So I want you to think even sometimes, for example, now that we're learning virtually, we don't get a chance to meet new people. So if you were to kind of scan some people in your classroom that you might want to know, could you think about someone that you might put into your circle of participation? A friend that maybe, you've been looking at, a peer that you notice speaks up?
Yep, I think I could do that. I think also when I was going to the gym, that there were people that I would have, I would show up early for a class and I would chit chat with people. So, part of it might be because of what's going on in the world now. But I can see that reaching out to some people in classes or that I am seeing online could be helpful in the meantime.
Okay, that's great to hear. And you know, you can do this with everyone. If you want to increase your circle of intimacy, your circle of friendship, you just move them naturally into the circle three. And maybe some of your, you know, acquaintances will become friendships. Maybe some of your exchange people will become friendships or even more intimate. So it's really important that we really focus on that circle of participation. Um, Now that you've mapped up all your relationships, right? If you were able to just let me know using arrows, which we don't have to do today, could you point to the people with whom you might want to build a better connection with? How can, or, you know, another way might be, how can you narrow the relationship gap between you and those chosen people?
Well, I think that there are some people in the New Hampshire Knitting Buddies group that they are already in the friendship circle, but I could make an effort to reach out more one-on-one and not just when we're all hanging out as a group.
Okay, so maybe bring them more into your intimacy, right? Because intimacy can be the strongest of friendships that you've had, and it's not, sometimes it extends beyond family. So that's great. Thank you, Amanda, for participating. So then, as teachers, you'd go on and you discuss ways of how to strengthen those circles. And in the resource book, you'll see that it gives you 5 different ideas of strategies of how to do that. One is to build multidimensional relationships. And when you click on that, it tells you how to do that. You know, another one is, you know, eliminating distractions, like replacing screen time for people time, making online communication an add-on to real communication, doing things together with other people, learning to properly regulate emotions, and so on. Thank you for participating, Amanda.
So when we set out to compile resources for teachers on relationship building in the classroom, started by collecting didactic materials like some of the ones that you just saw in the resource guide for teachers to be able to share out, as well as information on lessons that could be taught in the classroom, like the one that we just did. But in addition, we know that many of the teachers in our own community are already doing this work. So I reached out to a small handful of teachers and asked them to share their classroom practices that help support relationship building. These are teachers who have figured out how to embed relationship building into their daily classroom routines rather than having to take time to teach standalone lessons. And it's my hope that by sharing these ideas, we can achieve the following: to gain a better understanding of how to integrate relationship building into our classroom and school environment, to broaden our repertoire of strategies, and to approach the work of relationship building in a more meaningful and thoughtful way, to kind of pay attention to the fact that we're doing this work on a regular basis. I got back a lot of great responses, and I'd love to continue to add to this list, so please feel free to email me your ideas, or maybe I'll email out the staff and see what kinds of responses I can get. And it will be on this link for everyone to be able to see.
The only other thing, Amanda, is that it's also added to the resource guide, so people can just go in and add stuff as well.
Okay, great. In my responses, I heard from Trish Williams. She shared with me that this year, instead of breaking up for group work in the usual way, she decided to have students work with the same group of students all year long. And she called them families. Each family came up with their own roles and rules. They exchanged contact information and created a virtual workspace. They decorated their family's workspace by adding a photo album, clip art, and Bitmojis. Trish felt that this approach would help to strengthen the relationships within a small group of students over the course of the school year. And her hope was that they would encourage each other to attend class and to stay engaged. She hoped that a little outreach from a family member would feel less maybe punitive than a call from the teacher. And she was hoping that that would would happen sort of naturally and organically when a student was engaged or not attending school. I also heard from Patty Adams. She said that she uses Padlet every day during advisory. She keeps a notebook for prompt ideas and then posts those prompts. Sometimes those prompts are fun, sometimes more serious, and she's found that it really helps students to start communicating and chatting and responding between themselves during advisory. And students have even started becoming even more engaged by suggesting topics on their own. Suzanne Riley has utilized several strategies this year to help build relationships. She started the year by contracting with the students. If you're not familiar with this activity, it's when a group of people discuss, build, and agree upon a list of rules and norms for their work together. Suzanne got a lot of great feedback on this assignment, and the students said that it helped them to feel more welcome and comfortable in the class, and it made them feel like she really cared about what they thought about how the class should be this year. Suzanne also uses the Rosebud Thorn check-in on a bi-weekly basis. That's one of the icebreakers that is mentioned in the resource guide as well. And it's a way for her to gauge how the students are doing. She then makes sure to follow up with students who share anything of concern and hook them up with someone if they need additional help. Suzanne has also been sending postcards to students as a way to highlight a job well done, a one-to-one conversation she had with the student, or if she notices a positive contribution or improvement of some kind. I also heard from Jen Eby, who makes sure to greet each student every single day by name and ask how their day is going. She also makes sure to ask them about something she knows they're working on or something else that they had mentioned recently. And she also meets one-on-one with each student once or twice a week to check in and see how things are going. At the end of class, she decided this year that she's going to allow a few minutes of socializing amongst the students. A lot of her students have been saying that they've really been missing out on that communication and socializing with their peers. And she said she wished she could take credit for this one on her own, but that her students actually requested it. But that's a great example of how a teacher took feedback from a student and said, you know, this is worth running with.
That's called attunement.
Next up is Jill Taylor, and she has 3 nifty classes in which they participated in 15 days of team building activities at the beginning of the school year as part of the curriculum. But because of this, she found it a lot easier to have them engage in group activities and breakout rooms during class time, and that's been working really well for her this year. She has also made great use of the Remind app as well as other social media, and she actively encourages students to reach out to her on the Remind app to advocate for themselves and to let her know if they're having any kind of trouble or problems. And she also makes sure to post school updates and important school information on these accounts so kids can stay up to date. Wayne also shared with me that he and Jill have done some things this year that are not built into the framework of class time, but have really helped them to feel more engaged with their students. They've done things like send birthday cards, deliver Halloween candy, and fresh baked cookies, school supplies, and they have mailed Dunkin' Donuts gift cards to students who have won classroom contests. So when I look back at this list, one thing that I notice about these ideas is that they still work in a remote environment. I think a lot of times we think about relationship building as sort of like an in-person activity, but all of these teachers have managed to figure out things that they can do in a remote setting. And I think a lot of us worried about how we would stay connected with our students when we're not in the same room together, but these ideas show us that it can be done. And all of these ideas translate easily to in-person learning as well. Now, as I had mentioned before, I had only emailed a small handful of teachers, but I know that there are lots more teachers in our building who are doing things in their classrooms to support SEL and relationship building. And I absolutely encourage you to add more to this resource over time, because you have valuable input as well.
I was really impressed to hear how teachers are also catching those micro moments and, using that to instill a skill or connect with a student. That's really awesome to hear.
Absolutely. We both wanted to thank you all for watching, and we hope that the information we shared has been helpful, but that we would also like to continue to build upon this body of knowledge over time. We will be sharing this slide deck with you, so once that happens, please take a moment to fill out this exit ticket questionnaire, which will help to guide us for future presentations as well.
Thank you, Amanda. I just want to, again, also thank everyone for listening and just read this quote that I just love. I have no doubt that the survival of the human race depends at least as much on the cultivation of social and emotional intelligence as it does on the development of technical knowledge and skills. Most educators believe that the development of the whole child is an essential responsibility of schools, and this belief is what has motivated them to enter the profession. Stay well, stay safe, and thank you for listening.